Hey everybody. This video is going to be a little bit longer than my usual videos, so I suggest that if you're not interested in hearing me just talk about what's been on my mind recently, you may want to kill the video and move on. To all of the new viewers that have come and registered and joined my account, subscribers that have joined my account, I wanted to say thank you, but I also urge you to go and check out some previous videos that I have made and get an idea of what my video series are about. Simply because I'm concerned that perhaps maybe you saw one of the videos that I made recently where I'm in a better mood or, saying some positive things, and you might think that all my videos are that way. I don't want you to get caught off guard or blitzkrieged by my thought process and be like, what the hell, why did I subscribe to this guy? Take a look at some of my older stuff. If you don't mind it and want to see what I have for the future, please, by all means, stay on. But if you see that I do stuff that you're really not into, I understand if you unsubscribe. Thank you for taking the time to check out the video that you did, and please don't hesitate to check back. Who knows, I may have another, needle in the haystack for you, and you may enjoy it. But anyway, as I said, this video is going to be kind of long because I'm basically just going over some thoughts I've had in my head for a while, and I wanted to touch on. So if you're not interested in just hearing me talk, I'm not ranting, I'm not making jokes, you probably want to shut this off. Okay, so, hey folks, this is what I'm thinking, or what I have been thinking for a little while. I was at work today, doing some light duties because of my wrist. I hurt my wrist at work a couple weeks ago, and the doctor has me on light duty for work. But one of the things that popped into my head, or several things that popped into my head, but one of the first things I wanted to talk about was modern society. I realized today that I am an anachronism because of what I believe and what I hold as the tenets of my personal life. We live in a world today that is mutated so far from what the tenets of what it used to be, that it's certain ideas, certain concepts no longer hold sway. The 7 deadly sins used to be a personification of that which is most corrupt, most morally lacking, most evil, most bad, however you want to call it. Greed, sloth, gluttony, lust, envy, wrath, and pride. 7 deadly sins. These were supposed to represent the worst that humanity had to offer. Nowadays, it's what sets, sweeps on national TV. It's what pulls in the ratings on cable and radio. It's what people want to see. Those are the things that people are looking for. That's what they find most entertaining. The 7 virtues, which are supposed to be the counterpart to those, don't hold any real value anymore, at least in my experience. I can't name off all 7 because they're not off the top of my head, but pride, justice, honor, loyalty, these aren't necessarily part of the virtues, but things that I feel should be part of the 7 virtues of humanity. Those don't really have much value or merit anymore. I mean, yeah, sure, in the right hands with the right script, they make a great action movie, but in reality, to be someone who is honorable, someone who's loyal, someone who's who pursues and supports justice, that kind of thing. Those kind of people are stepped on or laughed at or abused or whatnot because that's considered weakness, to try and pursue something for the greater good, an altruistic view, if you will. Using YouTube as an example of why this is true. If you look at the state of YouTube as it is today, as YouTube grows, Google's purchased it, it's supposed to have all these new changes, it's bringing in people hand over fist. The opportunities that the internet provides people, and the anonymity that, I sound like I have a cold, that the internet provides people, allows people to engage in the 7 deadly sins, and I mean that in a non-dogma, non-Bible sort of way, just the 7 deadly sins as far as I'm concerned, in a moralistic, reflective way. But still, it allows people to act and behave in a manner that's totally inappropriate. Ways that if people were to act that way in the real world, on the streets, in a supermarket, at the bus stop, they'd get hit in the face with something. To say the things that some people say to each other here on the internet, on YouTube, any place the internet is connected to, the freedoms that it affords people, along with those freedoms, it also affords them the anonymity to be complete children. I don't care how old you are. You can be 50, you can be 4. If you're talking to another human being that way, you're a child. You're an immature baby. making threats, belittling someone, all because there is no repercussions for your action. Things that you would never ever say to another person in the real life. You feel that you have the opportunity, the authority, and the right to say to another person. It's just wrong. It's childish, immature, and wrong. There's a current environment on YouTube right now that's pretty sad. There are several major, I guess that's not the right word. I guess if you look at it from, if you have a relative perspective, there's several popular YouTube users, or several YouTube users of notoriety. They've been harassed. Apparently, several of them have received death threats. Now, whether or not the death threats are true, I can't verify, because most of the times they've deleted them. But the simple fact of the matter is that there is plenty of trolls, plenty of haters out there that are causing trouble. Now, the problem with the situation is multiple. First and foremost, if we were to try to implement some sort of policing system, we'd create a circumstance which would fall into the term I hate the most, the slippery slope. When you start policing things like that, where do you stop? When does PC not start garnering the championing the effort? When suddenly somebody's feelings are hurt because you don't like a video, and you say, "Wow, your lighting is off." Does that suddenly fall into the things that need to be should be banned for that? It's really a dangerous thing. But at the same time, once again, there are no repercussions for the actions of people. I think that YouTube could take a step in the right direction by doing one simple thing to help prevent this from happening. No, they don't have to start banning people left and right. No, they don't have to. All that YouTube would have to do was implement a credit card verification process. That's it. All YouTube would have to do was require that in order to establish an account on YouTube, you have to have a valid credit card. Doesn't mean that they charge. I'm not saying that YouTube should charge, but in order to get an account, you have to have a valid credit card, verifying your age and verifying your address and name and all that nifty stuff. Obviously, YouTube would have to make it so that that information was privatized and not sold to the highest bidder for spam and all that wonderful stuff. But therefore, a system of repercussion would fall into play, because anybody who is logged into to their account has a registered information about themselves. Now, what you're going to say to me is, well, people can get fake credit cards, or they can steal somebody else's ID. And that's where it protects itself, because if somebody is using a credit card that doesn't belong to them, they're using an IP address, another thing which I want to touch on in a minute, that can be tracked down, and the person who's using it can, at least they can have an area in which this person is at. So it protects itself. The credit card protects the user, and the IP address protects the credit card owner, so it sort of falls hand in hand. Speaking of IP addresses, there was a point that was brought up in another video. Granted, the video was made in bad taste, I thought, but the point that the person made was very good and very clear, and I want to share it with you all now. I know a lot of you out there aren't computer savvy. I know a lot of you don't understand how computers work. You don't understand how the internet works. I mean, you have a general idea, you turn it on, you can log in, all of that fun stuff. But terms like IP address, things like that, make people nervous because they don't know what it means. First and foremost, they see address in the name and they think, oh my god, it's my address. Folks, an IP address is nothing more than a way for your computer to communicate to the internet. It lets the internet know where to send the information to. If your computer was connected anonymously to the internet and you were trying to get email, guess what? You'd never be able to access the email because it wouldn't know where to send it. An IP address simply tells the internet service provider where to send the information. It does not tell whoever has it your personal information. The IP address, if put in the right hands of a person, can be brought back to the internet service provider. Now, there are circumstances that you people can quote to me about, well, what about this guy? He got his information tracked down. Chances are that person's information was listed to a website or a web domain that they registered themselves, and they made a mistake. They registered under their own personal information. When registering a domain or a website, you have to give, it's required that you give some information of ownership. Most people that are smart just give a random thing, or they give a business that they're associated with, but not their personal information. Those people that you've seen online that have had their personal information revealed, it's because they've registered their information in some magnitude online. It's dangerous. So if you are ever going to register a website, do not include your real personal information, because yes, then somebody gets the IP address of your website. They can actually go and do a whois, which is a command that you can do on a shell, and it will bring up that information. Anybody can. with if you have the right access to the stuff out there that you can find on the internet. There are some Java-based ones that you don't even have to own. Just go to a website and type it in, and you can find out, as long as you know the IP address. But by the same token, folks, if you're being harassed by somebody and you have their IP address, you're really out of luck. The only person, or the only people that can actually get the information from the ISP, because it's illegal for the ISP to actually give that information out to anybody else except law enforcement agencies, government agencies, which means there has to be a legal precedence behind it. Joe Schmo can't walk into AOL and say, I've got IP 192.168.1.1, who does it belong to? They're going to get kicked in the ass and sent out the door. It has to be, Officer Bob with a court order that specifically says we are investigating this particular cybercrime. We need information about this. And then they have to go through a process. One of the things that really makes it easy for people to be hurtful and mean on the internet and for all intents and purposes fall on the line of harassment, another thing I want to touch on, is that the process to get that information is pretty difficult. You have to go get a lawyer, then you have to file a complaint with the police, then there has to be proper procedures followed, then you have to go to, you have to get a court order, then they have to go to the internet service provider, then the internet service provider has to work with the legal agency, and 9 times out of 10, you never get that information. The legal system goes through it until they track it down, and then they find out who it is, and then you can, press charges or what have you. But to the same token, where they cannot track you down at your house because they have your IP address, you cannot track them down either. It's a really, really, really involved process. That stuff you see on TV and in the movies where they type in they put in a cool program and they do it. There are programs out there, but chances are you have to know some serious, seriously fucked up government officials to get your hands on that kind of stuff before you can actually track that down to a home level. That's the end user, the average end user, the home end user is never ever going to have that stuff. But I digress. On the thing of harassment, and this is something I think is very important for a lot of people to understand. In real life, at the workplace, at your job site, at a restaurant, saying how you feel, how you interpreted something has value, has weight. When it comes to the internet, unless it is clearly defined harassment, and you go and look up the words harassment and find out what they mean, it has to be without a doubt, no gray area, clearly defined harassment before any legal action can take place against a person. If somebody comes onto your YouTube or your YouTube profile and says, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, it's not harassment. They have to say the words, things like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to come to your house and kill your friends and family. It has to be clear cut. The way that the government works and the way that the law works is that you cannot be nailed for harassment unless there is no doubt. And even then it becomes a fucking pain in the ass. Our government is so fucked up and there's so much red tape and so much bureaucracy that we have to go through that most crimes of this type are completely ignored. And the little guy gets fucked, shit on. Unless you are somebody with money or influence or power, and chances are that all comes back to having money, you're really not going to have a lot of these issues resolved. You're just going to have to suck it up. You're up shit's creek without a paddle, shit out of luck. It's basically what it comes down to, and I'm sorry, but it's true. And that also falls back onto the whole, respect, justice thing. I feel that anybody that behaves that way in life should have justice thrust upon them. I feel that anybody that treats another human being that way should have justice thrust upon them. It's just not, it's not right to treat another person that way. It's wrong. And the youth of today have been raised with the freedom and anonymity of the internet, that they don't understand that what they're doing is wrong. And when you slap them for it, you're a fascist because they're suddenly feeling some sort of reaction of what they're doing. It's just not a good world that we live in right now, and until we make changes to make it better, it's just going to get worse. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I wanted to touch on that stuff, folks. As I said, I'm an anachronism. I believe in all of those things, and I feel that they should have weight and merit in this world. And every day I'm disappointed and disillusioned because I see things happen on a daily basis where they don't, and that good people are hurt every day, and innocent people suffer at the hands of abusers every day. And to go out and try and fix it would only end up putting me in prison, and the other people get to fucking laugh at me, because if I go and beat on somebody because of what they're doing, I'm at fault. That's the kind of world we live in. I mean, I don't believe that violence solves everything, but sometimes a good kick in the mouth would make a point. Another point that I wanted to touch on, folks, the debate between Christians and atheists that have been raging on YouTube for the last however many months. There are some well-spoken Christians out there, Catholics, people of the faith, Bible-reading people, And there's some well-spoken atheists out there who have very valid points. Both sides have valid points for their side of the argument, if you can really call it an argument. An argument means there's trying to be some exchange of thought or information. What we're having here is just a yelling match over something that cannot be proven or disproven. Does God exist? One side believes it does, one side believes it doesn't. The problem is that the most outspoken members of both sides are assholes in this fucking circumstance. You're not trying to prove a point, you're trying to prove the other person wrong. You're not trying to validate your statement, you're telling everybody else why your point of view proves the other person's an idiot. The Christians are screaming at the atheists how they're moralists and they have no value and they're fucking bastards, all of them. And the atheists are calling the Christians sheep and stupid and ignorant, and you're both yelling at each other, pointing fingers and cussing and spitting, but you're not doing anybody any good. Are you trying to sway people to your side of the argument? Guess what? 99.9999999% of the people already have their minds made up. And that 0.000000001, why would you even want to bother trying to sway somebody that's easily convinced? If they can be as easily convinced by your argument to believe in God, they can be just as easily convinced not to believe in God. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have an opinion. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out there and say, I believe in atheism, I believe this, I believe that, and stating your opinion, but you're bashing people being rude and obnoxious to each other, and it's fucking stupid. It really is. I'm not saying that there isn't a God, I'm not saying there isn't a God. I have my own personal faith, and I'm not sharing that with you, because as far as I'm concerned, it has nothing to do with anything. It's my relationship with whatever I happen to believe in, and that's that. Touching on religion, there's one more point that I wanted to bring up, something that I read on my live journal that I had written, I don't know, about a year ago in a conversation I was having with Pipistrello and Violet Kitty 411 and several other people, having to do also with another thing that's been prominent on YouTube recently, which is the Christians versus homosexuals debate. One side is decrying homosexuality as a sin, and it's God hates fags and all of that bullshit. And the other side, that homosexuals are people and da-da-da-da. Now here's the deal, folks. Here's my personal take on this, and I'm basically regurgitating and paraphrasing what I had written. I wanted to sit down with a couple Christians. I had some questions I wanted to have answered if I could. Now, I have several friends that are biblical scholars, believe it or not. Doesn't mean that I follow the Book of Christ or the Book of God or whatever you want to call it, but I have friends that do. And they are very, very adamant about their faith. And I asked one particular scholar friend who went to school, he was actually going to become a priest, and he was in college for it, and he just dropped out for whatever reason, I forget why. But I asked him to tell me a guesstimation of how many times it mentions that homosexuality was a sin in the Bible. And he gave me a rough guesstimation of about 15 times, roughly. I mean, he could have given, if I asked him to, he would have researched it and came back with more of a specific number, but instead he said about 15. So, roughly about 15 times in the Bible it says that homosexuality is a sin, God abhors homosexuality, it is a sin against God, it's a sin against man, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So then I asked him to go into the Bible, if he could, and tell me how many times it mentions the 10 commandments and just sin in general. How many times is that mentioned in the Bible? To which he couldn't, because it's mentioned so many times. The point of that is this. Homosexuality, and this is something that I have to say because it's true, homosexuality has not been proved by science to be inherent. I'm sorry. There are studies, but there are no scientific, proofs that show that homosexuality is inherent. I personally believe that it is, but I have to say, for point of truth, that there are no studies that show without a doubt that homosexuality is inherent. There are studies looking into it. There are studies that lead us to believe it, but nothing is, conclusive. However, there are also, and I can say this with 100% certainty, no studies at all, and there never will be, that show that a man is born Catholic. That's right. You're not born Catholic. Now, let's follow the Catholic thought here. Homosexuality is a choice. It's not inherent. It's a choice. Okay. So is Christianity. So is Catholicism. You're not born a Christian. You're born into Christianity. When you're born, you're baptized, and thus you become a Christian. You're born into it, but you are not born one. It is a choice you make. Now, homosexuality, by your argument, is a choice, and it's a sin. Being a Christian is a choice, but it's not a sin. However, most Christians, most Catholics, most Bible-following people sin on a daily basis. Sorry, folks, just being part of everyday life, you sin. You lie, you cheat, you steal, you curse, you belittle, you are gluttonous and envious and wrathful and, lustful and all that stuff. Sin is a sin, folks. Homosexuality is a sin. Lustfulness is a sin. God sees sin as sin, period. So guess what? You, the Bible-waving, God-hates-fags asshole, are breaking as many rules as that fag. So you're going to hell just as quick, because if truly is that it's a sin, if it's truly a sin in God's eyes, then all the homosexual has to do, if he believes so, is ask for forgiveness. God will forgive him by your law. Speaking of which, and this is another point that really needs to be touched on, want to explain to me why it is that when it comes down to proving the proof, trying to provide proof or whatever of God's existence, most Christians will go head to toe with any scientists out there saying that science is flawed and science this and oh, science is bad that and science is wrong, science blah blah blah. But when it comes to their arguments that are for the Bible, suddenly science is the torch that they carry. Science doesn't say that fags exist for real. Science doesn't say that homosexuality is inherent. Suddenly they champion science. Why is that? Either make it or break it, folks. No cake and eat it too scenario. Either disown science from your faith or accept it and shut the fuck up. There is no two-way street here. Okay, you are fucking hypocritical dicks if you use science one way to prove your Bible and then bash science the next to also prove your Bible, okay? You don't get both sides. You get one. Pick it and shut the fuck up. So yeah, those are several things that have been going on in my head that are here, I'm not looking for any responses to this video. It's just stuff that's been in my mind. It's going on to almost 23 minutes now, so I think I'll stop here. I'll probably come up with something later. I guess I'll talk to you all later. If you have any questions or comments, anything you want to hear me talk about, please don't hesitate. Once again, if you sat through this and you're one of my new subscribers, thank you. You've got testicular fortitude. I have to salute you for that. All right, until next time.